My name is Alex, and this is my story of how my curiosity unraveled the layers of reality I had grown so comfortable with. It began innocently enough on a cold, uneventful evening. I was browsing the internet, aimlessly sifting through forums dedicated to unsolved mysteries and paranormal phenomena. These had always intrigued me, though I never truly believed any of it. That was until I stumbled upon a peculiar thread buried within a dark web forum. It was titled "The Doorway to Beyond, a Live Experiment." The post was sparse on details, merely a countdown timer and coordinates for a virtual gathering. My curiosity piqued. I noted the time and place. Days passed, and I found myself inexplicably drawn back to that countdown. On the appointed night, I followed the link provided, leading me into a labyrinth of encrypted chat rooms. The air in my small apartment seemed cooler, heavier as I sat there, waiting for something, anything, to justify the anticipation building in my chest. A series of projections flashed suddenly on my screen, displaying static yet strangely sinister images of shadowy figures, like specters frozen in mid-motion. A chill ran down my spine. It felt as if these blurred silhouettes knew I was watching them. The chat room suddenly vibrated with activity. Messages poured in, urgent, frantic, in languages I could not comprehend. Yet one line stood out, repeatedly flashing in bold caps. Type choose. Succumbing to the eerie momentum of the event, I typed in that single, commanding word. My screen went black. Panic jolted through me, but before I could react, a chilling whisper emerged from the speakers. It sounded close, too close, as if this entity was right behind me, breathing down my neck. "You shouldn't have opened this door, Alex." My heart pounded violently. How did they know my name? Tremors of fear seized me as the screen flickered back on. There I saw myself, caught in the feed of my webcam, with a dark figure standing just behind me. I spun around, but my room was empty, devoid of any presence. Yet when I looked back at the screen, the figure remained, looming closer, its features slowly coming into grotesque focus. I slammed the laptop shut, my heart feeling like it might burst from my chest. I sat there, shrouded in an eerie silence, afraid to move, or even breathe. It wasn't until dawn when I gathered the courage to open my laptop again, only to find everything seemingly back to normal, as if the night before had been an unsettling dream. Weeks passed, but the experience haunted me, playing on my mind at random intervals. Friends noticed my distraction, but I couldn't tell them the truth without sounding insane. Eventually, I convinced myself it was merely a prank, a clever program designed to frighten curious cats like me. Yet, strange occurrences began to plague my life. Shadows seemed to linger in the apartment longer than natural. I would catch glimpses of movements in the corners of my eyes, reflections of figures in mirrors that vanished upon a second glance. At first, I dismissed them as tricks of the mind, residual nightmares, but they grew more persistent, more intrusive. One evening, while laying restlessly in bed, I heard it again, the voice. Only this time, it resonated from the shadows lurking in the far corner of my room. "You shouldn't have opened this door, Alex." An unseen pressure pressed down upon my chest, paralyzing me with fear. These were not mere phantoms of my imagination. They had crossed over, into my realm, into my life, and they were not alone. I sought desperately for solutions, for ways to rid myself of these malevolent specters. I sifted through arcane rituals, technological spells, anything that might sever their tether. The trial was harrowing, each attempt sapping more of my strength, plunging me deeper into despair. In one final act of desperation, I returned to the dark web, seeking the same form, if only to find a way to undo what had been done. The thread was gone, as if it had never existed. Yet a new post caught my eye. For those who have chosen. It was a troubled wail from past victims, sharing their encounters, their losses, and one mentioning a ritual, a reversal curse. Armed with this new information, I enacted the procedure late one night. With trembling hands, I disconnected every electronic device, drew a circle of salt around my perimeter, and lit candles purloined from an old church. I recited the incantation, every word feeling like splinters on my tongue, beckoning whatever hope I had left to aid me. The atmosphere darkened, a weighty silence falling over the room. And then, as if exhaled by that malevolent entity itself, the shadows began to unravel, pulling away from me, retreating. The breath I didn't know I was holding escaped my lips, gifting me a shred of peace I had been deprived of for far too long. The experience left scars, indelible marks upon my psyche. I gave up on my inquisitive web expeditions, shunning any potential pathway that might lead me back to that shadowed realm. But even now, sometimes, when the night grows too still, I hear them, whispers trailing faintly on the wind, reminding me of the shadows I dared glimpse, a reminder of the doorway I never should have opened. My name is Alex, and this is my story of how a simple curiosity turned my life into a waking nightmare. It was a cold and rainy night last October when everything began. Bored and seeking distraction, I decided to dive into obscure corners of the internet. A friend had once warned me about the dark web, recounting terrifying tales of illegal dealings and unspeakable horrors. My rational mind knew better, yet the allure of the unknown drew me in. As I sat alone in my dimly lit room, the soft tapping of rain on the window provided an eerie soundtrack as I navigated through hidden nodes and masked addresses. Hours passed, and I found myself in an online chat room that claimed to offer a portal to the unseen world of spirits and specters, a perfect blend of skepticism and interest for my curious heart. The chat room's description was vague, and the interface was unnervingly minimalistic. Participants shared stories of paranormal experiences, some claiming to have made contact with entities from beyond. One user mentioned a ritual that, if followed correctly, would connect you with a spirit seeking closure. His words were surrounded by virtual whispers of caution and disbelief from others. I couldn't resist. I wanted to prove it was no more than a digital hoax. The ritual was simple: a candle, a small mirror, and a question written on a piece of paper. The user, under the cryptic alias of Whisperer, assured us a spirit would answer the question if the ritual was performed precisely at midnight. Skeptical, yet intrigued, I scribbled a question that had lingered in the back of my mind for years since my childhood. What happened the night my father disappeared? At midnight, I sat in the darkness of my bedroom, the candle's flickering glow casting shadows that danced around me. As I concentrated on the mirror, a strange sensation enveloped the room, a tingling chill that made the hairs on my neck stand. I repeated the question, eyes glued to the mirror's surface. Seconds turned to minutes, and just as disbelief began to creep in, the shadows in the reflection twisted unnaturally. I gasped, fighting the urge to look away. A faint voice, more like a whisper carried by the wind, echoed in the room. Seeking truth brings forth shadows. My heart pounded as I watched a figure form in the mirror, its features indistinguishable, but presence undeniable. I asked again, and this time the air grew dense, the candle flickering violently. The words seemed to crawl from the mirror's depths. He walks beyond, where shadows dwell. The room's air turned icy, leaving breathy vapors with each exhale. As if a spell had been cast, the candle extinguished itself, plunging the room into a choking darkness. I sat, stunned, frozen in the abyss of night and silence, until the first light of dawn crept in, breaking the enchantment. Days, following the ritual, passed in a haze. Sleep evaded me, haunted by lucid dreams where whispers echoed and shadows loomed. My reflection would occasionally warp into something unfamiliar, an eerie reminder of my midnight encounter. Determined to find closure, I threw myself into parts of my father's past that had long been left untouched. Hidden amidst old photo albums and journals were accounts of his deep interests in the paranormal ventures to places rumored to be haunted, annotations on spirit communication. Each discovery tied him closer to the very whispers I'd encountered. One entry, dated weeks before his disappearance, described a spirit apparition he allegedly witnessed during a visit to an abandoned mansion known for its ghostly legends. His words hinted at a presence he felt was always watching, a sense of being drawn towards something otherworldly. With a sinking sensation, I recognized the descriptions, echoes of the same whispers and shadows, now creeping into my world. I returned to the chat room, desperate to connect the dots. Whisperer was gone, his account vanished as if it never existed. Others spoke of similar encounters, yet none as profound. In their stories were remnants of unfinished business and faded souls, all seeking more than they once had. But amidst the tales lay warnings, urging caution, entangling with the spirit's realm. In a last-ditch effort to sever the ties that had begun to consume me, I sought a local clairvoyant. She listened with understanding eyes, her aged hands tracing symbols in the air, guided by something unseen. With measured words, she spoke of a balance upset by my meddling. Your father's search led him into the shadows, not knowing the cost of that knowledge, she whispered, conducting a cleansing ritual. Whether through her mystic rites or a psychological placebo, the grip of the shadows eased. My dreams settled and the whispers faded, though their memory lingers like a scar. They served as a warning curiosity is not without its price. In the end, the past stayed buried, the truth of my father's fate forever lost in shadows. Yet a part of me wonders, every now and then, as darkness settles, about the boundary between this world and the beyond. What happens if it comes searching again?